What is the key to getting your priorities straight? We're talking about that and more in today's video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Spencer Conway and I make videos helping people follow Jesus and grow in their faith. And if this is your first time, go ahead and click that subscribe button. We're in the middle of a series going through the book of Philippians, and today we're finishing up chapter 1, verses 27 through 30. So let's jump right in. Starting in verse 27, it says this: just one thing. As citizens of heaven, live your life worthy of the gospel of Christ. He says, as citizens of heaven. Here's a takeaway I want to leave for you. As Christians, we have dual citizenship. The Christians that he is addressing in Philippi, though they are citizens in the Roman Empire, Paul is reminding them that they too are citizens of heaven. And the same is true for you and I. I'm a Canadian citizen, but I'm also a citizen of heaven. And because I'm a citizen of heaven, this gives me an eternal perspective. And this is the takeaway I want to leave with you, that as Christians, we ought to have an eternal perspective. And when we have that perspective, it impacts our priorities. And look at the priorities Paul is pointing the church in Philippi towards based on this eternal perspective he believes they should have. He says, as citizens of heaven, live your life worthy of the gospel of Christ. You know, in our culture, it's so easy to judge our success based on worldly metrics. How much money do I have? How accomplished am I? How well liked am I? How many followers do I have on Instagram? But here we are reminded of this truth that we ought to be judging success based on eternity. When we have an eternal perspective, it impacts our priorities. And our priorities ought to be aligned around the gospel of Jesus Christ when we see everything from an eternal perspective. Let's keep reading. He continues on and he says, then whether I come and see you or am absent, I will hear about you that you are standing firm in one spirit, in one accord, contending together for the faith of the gospel, not being frightened in any way by your opponents. This is a sign of destruction for them, but of your salvation, and this is from God. Here's what I want to draw your attention towards. It says, standing firm in one spirit, in one accord, contending together for the faith of the gospel. Here's my takeaway. Unity matters in the church. Church unity is so important. And what I love about this passage here is that Paul is showing us that the thing we ought to be united around first and foremost is the gospel. Our call as the church, as citizens of heaven, to keep bringing the gospel forward. He says contending together for the faith of the gospel. So if you are in a local church, I want to encourage you, number one, to fight for unity and to fight for keeping the main thing in your church, in your ministry, in your small group. And the main thing is the gospel. All right, let's keep reading. It says in verse 29 and 30, for it has been granted to you on Christ's behalf, not only to believe in him, but also to suffer for him, since you are engaged in the same struggle that you saw I had, and now hear that I have. So what we see from this passage is that not only is Paul suffering persecution as he is in prison, but it's very clear that the church in Philippi is also going through some form of persecution. We don't know exactly what that is as far as the details go, but we know that they are suffering. We know that they are going through persecution. And look at what Paul says to them. For it has been granted to you on Christ's behalf, not only to believe in him, but also to suffer for him. And so my takeaway for you is this: God can use suffering, right? We have the opportunity when we go through hard times to actually suffer for Jesus. And I believe that God uses suffering in our lives to actually refine us, to help us grow, to help us be better, right? Romans 8:28 says that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purposes. And so whatever you're going through, I can't tell you one way or the other if God made it happen. I mean, that is such a big topic, perhaps a topic of discussion for another day. And even when it comes to this topic of conversations, I really do believe we need to use humility, because as a human, I cannot look into your situation and tell you with absolute certainty, this is because of God or this is because of that. Listen, all I know is this: God uses our suffering, God uses our pain and our hardship. He doesn't let anything go to waste. So if you are in the midst of a really trying time, open yourself up to the possibility that God is working and He's moving and He's doing something in your life through it, all right? Well, guys, that's all we have for today. Thank you for watching, and listen, I would love to hear your takeaways from this passage of Scripture as well. So if you'd like to share any of that, be sure to leave it in the comments below. And hey, if this video helped you, I would encourage you to share it with a friend. And here's one way you could help me: like this video, subscribe to my channel so that you can stay up to date with everything that we're pushing out on a weekly basis. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.